My name is Manuelita Cody, and on behalf of the North American Chilean Chamber of Commerce and the Consulate General of Chile in New York, I would like to express our gratitude for your participation in this webinar titled Chile and the Challenges of Multilateralism. We are all aware that every September, world leaders gather in New York to participate in the proceedings of the General Assembly of the Organization of the United Nations. And this year is a particularly unique gatherings. First of all, we're not seeing the motorcades and the presence of special police in New York. We're also not seeing world leaders addressing diplomats and friends in the beautiful setting that is the United Nations sitting on the banks of the East River. Most importantly, what makes it unique also, this General Assembly, is that 2020 marked the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War and the establishment of the organization that is the United Nations. And much water has come under this bridge since then and until now. But some of the issues such as security, poverty, displacement, migration, health, human rights are certainly remain intertwined and are just as relevant today. This afternoon, we have the privilege to host Ambassador Milenko Skoknic, Chilean lawyer and career diplomat. Ambassador Skoknic has held important posts throughout its service to Chile. To introduce Ambassador Skoknic, may I request Chile's Consul General and board member of the Chamber, Mario Ignacio Artaza, to do so. So Mario Ignacio, please, I'm gonna give you now the floor so that you can continue with our.
Very much, Manuelita, members of the Chamber and of the Chilean community present online this afternoon. Firstly, the gratitude from the team at the Consulate General of Chile for the joint organization of this event, which is aimed at contributing to make the community aware of the important work that is undertaken by the professionals at Chile's mission to the United Nations in a historic year for the organization. I'm especially pleased and honored to be able to introduce Ambassador Milenko Skoknic, with whom I've had the privilege to know and work with for almost 3 decades in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I have particularly fond memories of our accomplishments during the APEC Chile 2004 year. I have yet to ask Ambassador Skoknic for whom he rooted for these past NBA finals, as Ambassador Skoknic is someone who shares the passion for teamwork, an essential element found in basketball. Ambassador Skoknic was once a member of the Chile's national team in basketball, and from time to time, we meet up during football matches in San Carlos de Apoquindo in Santiago. Friends, Ambassador Skoknic presented his credentials to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as Permanent Representative of Chile to the UN on the 21st of May, 2018. Prior to his appointment from 2016, Ambassador Skoknic was held important posts at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Chile, having previously served as Consul General of the country in La Paz, as Ambassador to Argentina, and between 2010 and 2014, he was Chile's representative in the dialogue of peace process between Colombia and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, the FARC, in Havana, in Cuba. Earlier in his career, Ambassador Skoknic was Chief of Cabinet to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and between 2005 and 2010, he was Ambassador to Austria, Slovenia, and Slovakia, serving concurrently as Permanent Representative to the international organizations based in Vienna, including as President of the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency. He's also held previously posts in the permanent mission to the United Nations, in the embassies of Chile at the Holy See, in Turkey, in Argentina, as Consulate General in Toronto, Canada, and in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Ambassador Skoknic studied law at the University of Chile, attended the Diplomatic Academy Andrés Bello of Chile, as well as St. Anthony's College in Oxford, and holds a diploma in international politics and economics from the Foreign Service program at Queen Elizabeth House, Oxford, in the UK. I'm sure that everyone present this afternoon is quite thrilled to have the opportunity to listen to what some people may regard the better half of Chile here in New York in diplomatic terms. Moreover, Ambassador Skoknic is the chairman of the Sixth Committee, the Legal Commission's discussion during this 75th session of the UN General Assembly. His experience and valuable insights are sure to be more than interesting. So may I please welcome, on behalf of everyone, Ambassador Skoknic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mario and Manuelita, for this opportunity. And thanks, of course, everyone who is here on screen or behind the computer listening to this participation and this conversation and dialogue about Chile and the multilateral scene, particularly here in New York. Let me say that it's an honor that I was invited by the North American and Chilean Chamber of Commerce and by my good friend Mario and the Consul General to express some views about what Chile is doing at the moment. Of course, he remembers some old things like when I could play basketball. Not these days, I suppose, but I enjoy very much the NBA Finals who just finished some days ago. But anyway, coming to our work, and maybe he noticed that I presented my credentials to the Secretary General on 21st of May, a day that he really enjoys because of a Navy officer's position that he holds as well. So Mario, it was a very important day to be with the Secretary General. Anyway, coming to the topic, let me say that everything, of course, is different these days at the UN. And it has been different, of course, since March, basically, 12th of March, when the UN more or less closed it for a few days before realizing that it could not longer wait for an improvement in the conditions, and we needed to do some work with the situation that was created in March, April, were terrible months here in the city of New York, as you all know very, very well. So let me say that from that time to now, everything has improved dramatically well on positive terms here at the UN. You know that from mid-September to mid-December is the busiest month of the UN, because as Manuelita was mentioning, all the leaders used to come here, but after they left, we started work with the committees, with the 220 items that we need to look every year, with the work of the sixth committee that looks more deeply into what we need to analyze, we need to approve resolutions, declarations. So it's extremely, extremely busy time. And although it's not as busy as any other normal year, we are doing our work. Mario mentioned that I'm the chair of the sixth committee, the legal committee, and for this year, for the 75th anniversary. And we are having every day meetings at the UN in presence there, and all the other committees are doing the same, but of course with enormous limitations. We used to have one room for ourselves. Now we need to space ourselves in 3 different rooms. So that limited the amount of sessions that we can have. Let's say that basically we're all cut by half. So what we used to do in 40 sessions, now we have to do it in 20. And we will have to use virtual means more and more every day. In some committees, they accept that. In others, they are more reluctant. But anyway, the UN is here, is present, and is working. What we're trying to analyze and tackle. Of course, you know, with a 75-year history, with 230 items that I mentioned, it's difficult to make a kind of short presentation on this. But and I have 20 more minutes according to the plan. But so I'll concentrate on 6 main issues that probably would put Chile's presence more into your perspective. Let's say that the first item in the list is, of course, COVID-19 and the pandemic in all its effects. Of course, the effects for the work of the UN, which is the less important effect, but the most important is health worldwide, with the incredible amount of people pass away that was affected, of course, in the US, but all over the world, over 1 million already. How to control this from the sanitary point of view, how to work together with the World Health Organization, how to work together in order to have some lessons learned and these things don't happen again, is one of the main elements of our work these days. And of course, has concentrated our vision for the last, let's say, 6 months, and it would be extremely important during the 2.5 months remaining in the main work of the General Assembly. So that's one element of the pandemic. The second element is the economic and financial effects. Of course, you are part of the city of New York, you walk around, probably your business has been affected, so I don't need to go into details about what has meant the COVID for all of us. Looking from the Latin American perspective and the Latin American region, all the studies and projections show that it's going to be one of the most affected regions in the world. So we need to concentrate our common efforts in order to try to spring back as soon as possible to economic recovery, to bring employment once again, to bring the women that have been affected most severely in their work. So that's the second part of the COVID that we need to face. Then, of course, the third element is how do we build back better? How will we do recover? And there are all these elements of the green recovery, because at the same time we have the climate change challenge. We cannot go again with the same kind of pattern. We need to modify some things. So how to build better, how to build back better is something that is extremely relevant. Let me say on that the Secretary General has issued several policy briefs that kind of provide guidelines about how to do this economic recovery, where to concentrate, where are the most vulnerable elements of our society. So there is a very important element on how to do this. And the last part of this pandemic, let's say, is how to do it, as I say, compatible to a climate change challenge. And every country is adopting policies and making an important contribution in order to also fulfill our commitments in order for a much cleaner world. So that's one point, the pandemic and all these main effects. Second point is climate change. And Chile has an important role on that because we are still the chair of the COP25 that is conducting the process of bringing nations together in order to commit to common standards, to common goals in order to achieve a better situation. Of course, we're working very closely with the UK, which will be COP26 chair, but that will happen only in November 2021. Since this year there was no COP in Glasgow as was the program, everything was postponed a year. So we still have one more year to go at the helm of conducting these negotiations with, of course, as I said, UK, but the Secretariat of the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, and the Secretary General, who has been really a strong supporter of what we are doing there. So I don't want to go into details on that, but let me say that the second important problem. Third element that I would like to mention today is that we all know that we have a weaker cooperation, and as I call it, a weak multilateralism framework these days. And then there are many reasons for that. And of course, one reason mentioned, and of course there is an important element, is that the main supporter of the UN for years and years, and the creator and everything, the US government is not so much involved these days compared to what it was in the past. That doesn't mean they are not participating, they are very strongly participating, but many of the things that have happened in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years have taken into effect that we consider as a weak cooperation. And the bilateral difference, of course, that we all know with China and with Russia has another effect in many, many elements on peace and security, but also in economic and social cooperation, and climate change, financial situations all over the world. So we are facing a weaker cooperation of the big powers. But that doesn't mean that the rest we're just looking at what is the situation and waiting for some change. Maybe those changes can take effect according to the elections that will happen, but we don't know. But that's why Chile is participating with France and with Germany and with a bunch of other countries in this coalition or alliance for multilateralism, to hear, so everyone can hear a voice and to know that we are concerned, that we need to work together, and we are doing our best in order to maintain this collaborative spirit that is needed in order to go through. A fourth element of the multilateral situation at the moment on global terms is that you can see that the Security Council is not working properly in most of the important issues that they face regarding peace and security all over the world at the moment. Some of these situations come a long way back. They are not recent situations. What is happening in Syria, in Yemen, or Libya, to say the three most dramatic situations at the moment are, as you know very well, they have a long history. So it's not recent, but unfortunately, the use of veto or cross veto sometimes doesn't help in order to have a common understanding of how to improve the situation in many of the countries. We have seen certain situations that have improved, like in Sudan or Somalia or Ethiopia. Of course, the peacekeeping operations are basically in Africa. They demand, of course, a lot of human resources, financial resources, and the cooperation of all the other countries. But we still need to do better and more. Countries like Chile, what are we doing? We have created a coalition of like-minded countries that we look for more accountability, more coherence, and better transparency on the work of the Security Council. We are called the ACT group, ACT group, and we are there telling to the members, particularly the permanent members of the Security Council, that they need to improve, they need to be more transparent in their work. We cannot keep going on with the same situation. Of course, that's related to some of the amendments that probably will need to be done in the near future about the enlargement of the Security Council, the use of veto, and so many things. That is not easy, have been discussed for many, many years, and it's difficult to reach an agreement, but it's still important to have it in mind. A fifth important component of the global discussions is at the moment that we have to look back at these 75 years of the organization. Of course, there are many positive elements, and I'm sure you agree with that. But of course, as well, there are some shortcomings at the moment, and we need to also put our best efforts in order to improve the work of the organization, to improve the bureaucracy elements of that sometimes make it a bit difficult to move on. But as it has been mentioned recently, of course, the Nobel Peace Prize went to the World Program on Food, el Programa Mundial de Alimentos. And it's not the only part of the UN that have received this award because of the multilateral activities. So in these 75 years, we have the organization, of course, received the award in 2001, the Blue Helmet, the refugees organizations, the IAA, and many others. because there has been an extraordinary amount of work and commitment in order to bring to alleviate some humanitarian situations that are terrible around the world. And related to what the future is, we have an important socio-economic agreement, which is the Agenda 2030 and the 17 development goals. We were working in order to fulfill this 2030 agenda. Chile was a country was very close to have them already complete, at least some of them. But if we look at the situation now, not only in our country, but also in the rest of the world, particularly the developing country, the situation is not going to be easy in order to get to the 2030 and getting into the commitments that we all agree in 2015. So I think how can I say, the recess that we're having in the economic situation, Chile this year maybe less 6% GDP, and other countries more or less the same. So we will have to look back and see where we're going to be, let's say by the end of the next year or something like that. But it's going to be very difficult to get to the 2030 and fulfill these goals. And the last point that I want to mention is, after so many years, the situation in the Middle East is still one of a very volatile one, less complex these days. Fortunately, there are some movements in the situation, but still what is happening in Palestine, what the work of the relief agency there is so relevant, situation in Gaza and so many others that we can point, brings the attention of the world to that complex issue that has been for many years. So I still have 5 minutes. So let's say that that's the overall picture. And I would like to say something about what Chile is doing. I already mentioned that we are chairing the COP25 and a lot of things to do. We have just elected for the first time a woman to the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea, Maria Teresa Infante. First time in 55 or 65 years that a Chilean is member of the International Court. And I think that is a very relevant point for a country like Chile with such a maritime coast and so many obligations on that area. The Chilean Contraloría is one of the 3 let's say, members of the board that look into the accounts of the UN. That is an important work that we need to look in the future. We're still a member of the Council on Human Rights. Unfortunately, this will end this December, but have been 3 important years of our work. And in the future, we are negotiating a very important agreement on something called biodiversity, but it's on maritime biodiversity, and it's called the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. Whatever is after the 200 miles of exclusive economic zone, that is an important achievement and agreement. We need to still some work to do on that. So we will have to keep negotiating with many others. And in order to finalize this, I'm also the chair of the group of Friends of the Spanish. The multilingualism is important here at the UN. It's very complex at the moment to maintain it. Has been difficult to use it in all the sessions because of the technical difficulties in order for remote systems to provide interpretation in so many languages at the same time. But we're moving through. We are participating virtually, and now we have the 6 languages all in all. So, as you see, it's an overall from the big things to the smaller things. But the Chile's presence is very important. And to conclude with the chairing of the 6th committee, it has happened only 5 times in the 75 years of the organization that a Chilean has chaired one of the main committees that look after the socio-economic affairs, the peace and security and nuclear situations, or human rights issues, or legal, like the six, and decolonizations and many other situations that are around the world. With that, I think I better stop because I would like to hear your comments, hear your questions. If I can answer, I will be more than happy. If I cannot answer at the minute, I will send you the answer that I can provide later on. But this has been a great opportunity to in a nutshell, present you, I think, with what is going on at the moment at the UN. But let me assure you that we are back on track with all the complex situation and all the difficulties. We cannot even come to another ambassador during the meetings. While we are in the room, we go into our seat, we cannot move. We have to use the mask all times while we are at the building of the UN. So not a chance to have a kind of private conversation there, and that's why we are all the time doing some little Zooms or conversations through the web outside the building, because they are very strict inside the building, and in order to, let's say, to keep us safe, basically, you know, the amount of colleagues, including, of course, myself, which are higher risks there, is somebody that something that we need to keep in mind. So with that, I thank you once again for your presence, for your participation, and for the interest in listening to this kind of topics. Thank you. Manuelita or Mario, I don't know who will take the helm now.
Manuelita.
Okay.
Embajador, muchísimas gracias por esa maravillosa presentación. La verdad...
You have to say English or not, Manuelita.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking in Spanish. I apologize. I thank you, Ambassador, for this wonderful presentation. It certainly seems like to outsiders, we don't know enough of the work, the good work that is being done by the UN and all the its many committees. So I have a question from Cristobal Lyon on the line, who wants to know which is the recommended approach for an entrepreneur after the China-US polarization.
Well, we are in touch with entrepreneurs at the UN, of course, you know. So, and also in particular in these times, but since he mentioned China-US situation, I think I would say for the time being, wait and see. You know, Mario, of course, could say more, having been our consul general in Hong Kong and working on the private sector there, and of course the expert in China. But at the UN, we don't get particularly into those specific elements. But let me say that we need to improve the cooperation, of course, between two of the most important powers in the world at the moment, because that will benefit all. And to come with tariffs and duties and improve all the things we saw in the past, let's say, 2 years, doesn't help the world trade. And that affects Chile and, of course, affects entrepreneurs. So we need a more stable situation and not having retaliations or repercussions every time there is a problem with some sector or some specific product. And I think to have a World Trade Organization that is the element where we can get together. Now they are trying to elect a new director general. That's an important process, and have in mind that the two last candidates for possible director general and 2 women. So I think there's also another new element there. But I wouldn't like to go into more details on that particular area, Manuelita. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I have a question, and I mentioned it before. It's obvious that the UN does a lot of important work. How do we aid in the promotion of this work that is so important to all of us, to the entire world, and that we know so little about? How do we help, or how does the UN, how does each country can promote the work that is being done through different channels, through other organizations?
Well, you know, of course, the UN is a group of states, you know, so it's a governmental work. But more and more, civil society is part of our work. Not only because we accept civil society, they can be accredited and they do an important amount of bringing to governments some issues that probably they are not well aware. And so there is a lot of going on with the civil society. Unfortunately, in this environment of not having been able to be present at the UN and having to use these virtual elements, it has diminished a little bit. But for example, what you're doing right now, and all of you is here listening and knowing a bit more about what is going on, that's an important element. And if we multiply this for many others, I think the work can have a positive effect on many people. But let me say that we count on the participation of the civil society a lot. Of course, climate change, you know, there are many organizations that are participated there. Landmines issues, you know, banning of course, the landmines, banning of cluster ammunition. They have received the Nobel Peace Prize of that. So I can go into many elements of very important participation of people that is not part of the UN, but they organize, they want to listen, and we need to work with all of you much more closely. So that's why your invitation was accepted with so much pleasure, Manuelita. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have some time for another question. You touched upon a little bit on the work of that is being done with the COP25. And if you could go into a little bit more specific, the kinds of things that you're working on, and that where Chile is leading the way,
Sure.
that would be great. Thank you.
No, well, look, not only to chair the process of the 190 something countries that they need to get together, they need to approve some of the commitments done at the Framework Convention and put into the implementation of the Paris Agreement is already an extremely relevant participation. But what we are trying to do is that every country sets a target to be zero coal or zero emission country by 2050. Chile has decided, and these are called the national determined contributions, that we can change our energy grid, going out of coal, going out of fossils, and getting more into renewable sources of energy. And of course, that transition it has a lot of economic effect. That transition is not easy, it's not cheap, but it can be done with certain, of course, global participation and commitment, political commitment from each country. So we are reducing all, of course, we are not accepting any new coal generated power in Chile. And by 2040, they will be the end of all of those. And by 2050 will be zero. But China just announced during this past General Assembly that they can only do it on 2060. So the push from the Secretary General is 2050, and of course that's all. Chile is saying 2040. Some other countries are saying, oh, I can do it in 2035. All those are very important elements in order to contribute to have a better situation on climate change, on emissions, and of course CO2 emissions that are the most dangerous one. And so to chair the whole process, to have the national determination contribution. And also we are part of the coalition, and Chile and Finland are the two chairs of the coalition of Ministers of Finances, in order to provide the necessary tools for each country in order to have the resources and make these changes that are needed in our economic and also energy situation. So those are, I would say, those are three big issues that we are collaborating with everyone else. And of course, it's important that we are improving the situation in each country. We are trying to have a group of countries in our region, but also all over the world, that agree with us that 2050 is the latest, and if you can do it in 2040, even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I have one question from the audience, from Benjamin Leavenworth. What role should or can Chile play in Latin America with regards to setting a regional agenda, such as was the vision with of the Pacific Alliance?
Well, Chile has many roles to play. Pacific Alliance is a creation of course, we know Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile. We work, I think, very well and in very important areas for so many years in order to ease the movement of investment, to create more startup companies. I think what Corfo did in Chile by the beginning of 2010 with projects and the money allowing, I think that was replicated in many other countries and has been very successful. And every time there is a unicorn company from Chile or from Argentina or from other countries of the region, we are very happy. But of course, political situations changes. Although, for example, some of the countries of the Pacific Alliance are not so much involved at the moment in the same vision that they have some years ago. But let me say the following. At the moment, what we're going through in each country is so profound on the economic and financial situation that looks like we're very much looking into ourselves only. But we need the cooperation of everyone, and Chile with the Prosur is trying to collaborate not only on the situation, on the health situation, but also to bring vaccines closer to or quicker to our population when they are approved. And we can see that that is taking a long time, more than we expected, probably on that side. But at the moment, I would say that we have to concentrate on this domestic situation and keep our alliances strong, united. But we are not looking so much going forward to all other parts of the world that we did in, let's say, from the 2010 to 2014, 15. The situation has changed, and so we need to take care of that.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And I think we have no more questions from the audience. I have one final question you touched upon, each country going through their own economic and financial situation. I heard on the news a couple nights ago about a great number of countries possibly defaulting on their debt, like a crazy amount, maybe 20 or more. Are there any discussions about this subject that are taking place in some of your meetings these days?
No, that's I mean, defaults are something we don't discuss it here at the UN. It's not a UN issue. Of course, it's a multilateral thing, and it's more for Washington, let's say, with the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, and some other institutions, or the Inter-American Bank as well now. But let me say the following. the warning I'm saying is that we are all going to be affected. I don't know if to the point of 20 countries getting into default, that I have no data to say anything like that. So I will not comment. But we are going to have, of course, a difficult time. That doesn't mean that we will get into that extreme situation. So I think every country is doing the best we can, and I think Chile is doing a lot. I mean, many things very well in order to still have the economy in that at certain point that we can recover quicker when the situations does change because of these effects of the pandemic are less relevant. And it's not that easy, but as I said, we will have a drop of the GDP by I don't know what, but it's going to be important. But the other element is to be quick in the recovery. Of course, we need some open markets to stay in place, and that has been happening. Fortunately, we export lots to China and to the US, of course, the European Union, and so we need those markets still to be open, to recover, to be ready to accept our products and to buy more. So it's a situation that we need to look, but we need to prepare to be ready as soon as the situation generates a better condition.
Thank you, Ambassador. And if I may ask you one last question from the audience. You've been very generous with your time. We have a question from Ivan Rebolledo. How robust is the UN Global Compact vis-a-vis Latin America, Caribbean?
Well, I mean, there are very specific questions here. Huh? The Global Compact is a creation of Secretary General Kofi Annan many years ago, brings private and public together, which is one of the goals of the SDGs, the social development goals, to cooperate better. They are very important in Chile. The Global Compact has a very important office. There is someone probably you know, Ducci, but I don't want to say the first name because I can get confused. They are working very strongly, and we have a lot of interest on what the Global Compact is doing, of course, in Chile, but also in the rest of Latin America. But I'm not so much involved because, as I said, it's more private and the UN. Although the Secretary General does appoint the director of that Global Compact, private funds and private participation is very strong, and I think that has been a good example to follow maybe in other areas.
Well, Ambassador, we certainly appreciate the time that you've spent with us this afternoon. Thank you for all your candid answers to our questions. And again, thank you for sharing with us the important work that the UN does and that we all need to be more aware of. So I here invite you to a future chat with the members of the chamber and our friends and guests so that we can continue to learn from you on the valuable work that is being done. I don't know, Mario, if you have any parting words.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador Skoknic. I do hope that all the friends and members of the chamber have now proved to themselves that the better half of Chile is located closer to the East River. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. And we will end the meeting in a few minutes. I did want to mention, I want to invite all of you to our next event, which is tomorrow. We're launching a book written by a Chilean author who lives in Berlin and is the first attempt to present the book in the United States. Their author is Patricia Cerda, and the book is Bajo la Luz del Sur, La Cruz del Sur, I'm sorry, Under the Southern Cross. And I invite you all to take a look. We will have the author with us live, and she'll be answering some questions. So check us at our website, which is www.nacchamber.com. And again, thank you very much. I hope to see you all tomorrow. Ambassador, thank you again. Thank you, Mario. And everybody be well. We wish you all good health. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation, and it has been great to be here.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, embajador. Chao, chao, Manuelita.
Chao, chao.
Adios.